Yes, you know, what comes to me here is say we know what time it is. So let's say in our experience of ourself in ego consciousness is we experience ourselves in our passage through sequential time. You know, for example, I can look at my screen and know how many minutes we've been talking. I have a sense of how many minutes more I can talk, and I know what day it is, and I tomorrow I know what, and so it goes, and so it measures time on the clock. But in these moments where we turn to see a flock of birds descending, or these moments we know love in our own heart, that really is a kind of a timeless moment of time in the midst of time. That is, it's a hiatus from sequential time, like the pleroma, you know, the fullness of time, where eternity and the horizontal line of time and the vertical dimension of eternity intersect each other. And as we pass through the intersection in a moment of love or a moment of we're disarmed by something, there is that point of zero variance prior to the difference. And beyond that is there's that point, which is the point vierge. You know, it's the point where infinity is infinitely giving the infinity of itself away as a reality of everything along the line. So in a way, it's the eternality of the fleetingness of things, you know, the divinity of the poverty of things. Now, when that happens, like in that moment, we're like a momentary mystic. But then the ego that was transcended, as it comes through the point vierge, there's a lingering aura of awareness of its transcendence. And then one can learn to live by that and set out to join in that general dance by habituating it, you know, like the eternality of life itself and so on. So it's a lovely passage on time and the interpenetration of time and eternity as a temporal metaphor for the interpenetration of God in all creation and and not to mention our fleeting life, because in the passage of time, very soon I won't be here, and 3.5 seconds later you won't either, and anyone who may be listening to this, that you know they won't either. But but what's the deathless beauty of ourselves? You know, this flaking like shining out, this fleetingness. You know, and so the point there is the metaphor of that. It like conveys the essence of this kind of unitive mystery. It's really nice.
Yeah, and he, as I was working on, the different faces of Thomas Merton through the project or the evolution and the journey, I wanted to convey the ecology of Thomas Merton and his deep connection to nature, and also wanted to, without being gratuitous as a storyteller, kind of intuit a little bit about his relationship between Dom. Oh, it's escaping me right now.
Who
The
the abbot? Who?
the abbot.
Dom James,
Yes,
Bach, the abbot.
yes,
Yeah.
and that I find their relationship to be quite interesting,
Hmm.
because it was a very big challenge, but I think they taught each other things through the challenge of their anyway. I wanted to convey a little bit about how Thomas Merton struggled with the industry.
Yeah, that he. See, I think that Merton was. I think what he was concerned about was not at all the Industrial Revolution or
Okay.
technology. He realized that's where God's present in our epoch. But what he saw relative to the point vierge is this idea that we are what we do, and the more that we do, the more that we are. And through technology, we can exponentially increase what we do, and therefore it can exile us deeper and deeper and deeper from this non-objective, non-objectifiable mystery, you know, exiled human, the lonely crowd kind of thing. And he was aware of that in the monastery too. So in the building on the grounds of the monastery where they wrapped the cheese and the fruit cake, which is how they supported themselves financially, mail order business. They call that the Gethsemane Farms Building. So Merton used to call it the Get Some Money Farms Building. And he told me once in direction that the reason why he was allowed to be a hermit, he was the first Cistercian hermit since the Middle Ages. It's a Cenobitical order. He said it's they haven't let me do it because I write books, more royalties. You know, he didn't write books. He says there's no way he
Right.
would let me do that.
Yeah.
And so he saw it's a constant um, paradox of how do we be a contemplative, technologically grounded person,
Mm.
and how do we what's the spirituality of technology? You know, what's the spirituality of artificial intelligence? So instead of the tail wagging the dog, we
Mm-hmm.
kind of lose ourself. How can we see it as a medium to manifest humanity? And so, for example, for me, say even this audio set that we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
or things that might go out over the internet, like a monastery in cyberspace. So
Mm-hmm.
you can see that it's in the service of deliverance. It can be in the service, you know what I mean? That
Mm-hmm.
we have to be very careful that we don't get ahead of ourselves and kind of. That's why when I write spiritual writing, I always prefer to write with a fountain pen
Right.
because the computer's too fast. You know, it doesn't slow me down enough. I can do that later. And I think that's true of creating anything. Anyone who creates knows you can't create and get ahead of the attentiveness. You know, to
Mm-hmm.
give it space to appear, you can't do it. So I think it's a aspect of Merton. It's really true. He was sensitive to that.
Mm-hmm.